I'm writing this from a motel room 3 states away from where it happened. My hands are still shaking. It's been 2 weeks, but I can't sleep more than an hour without waking up drenched in sweat, hearing that laugh echoing through my skull. The police have my statement. The FBI has my statement. But nobody believes the full story. They can't. Because what I saw in those woods doesn't fit into their reports or their case files or their understanding of what's possible. So I'm posting it here. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone will understand. Or maybe I just need to get it out before it drives me completely insane. I went into the Black Pine Forest on October 28th. I'm a solo backpacker, have been for years. I've done the Appalachian Trail, parts of the Pacific Crest, dozens of weekend trips into remote wilderness. I'm not some amateur who panics at strange noises. I know how to handle myself in the woods, or at least I thought I did. The trail I chose was deliberately isolated. I'd researched it for weeks. Minimal traffic, no cell service, no nearby campsites. Just 70 miles of old-growth forest and absolute solitude. That's what I wanted, what I needed. My job had been crushing me for months. Endless deadlines and office politics, and the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a life that wasn't mine anymore. I needed to disappear for a few days. I needed silence. I started hiking around 8 a.m. The trailhead was empty, which wasn't surprising for a Thursday in late October. The temperature was perfect, mid-50s with that crisp autumn air that makes everything feel clean and possible. The trail wound through dense forest, mostly pine and oak, with thick underbrush that hadn't been cleared in years. Within an hour, I couldn't hear the highway anymore. Just my boots on the path and birds calling from the canopy. I hiked for 6 hours straight, stopping only to filter water from a creek and eat a protein bar. The deeper I went, the better I felt. The weight of civilization lifting with each mile. By mid-afternoon, I'd covered almost 15 miles. My legs burned in that good way, the way that reminds you your body still works, still has purpose beyond sitting in desk chairs and staring at screens. Around 3 p.m., I saw him for the first time. He was standing in the middle of the trail, maybe 50 yards ahead, just standing there motionless, like a scarecrow someone had planted in the wrong place. As I got closer, details emerged. An old man, impossibly thin, his clothes hanging off him like they belonged to someone twice his size. Gray shirt, brown pants, both covered in dust and grime. His face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp enough to cut, skin pulled tight over his skull like parchment stretched over a frame. But his eyes were what stopped me. They were focused, alert, not confused or lost like you'd expect from someone his age alone in the wilderness. He was waiting for me. I slowed down, raised a hand. "Hey there! Beautiful day for a hike!" He didn't respond right away, just studied me with those sharp eyes, like he was measuring something, calculating. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady, each word deliberate. "Move your tent at least 50 feet away from the tree line. Don't camp near the woods. Bad things come out of the trees at night." The way he said it made my skin prickle. Not like advice, like a warning someone gives when they know exactly what's going to happen if you don't listen. "What kind of things?" I asked, but he was already moving. He stepped sideways off the trail, pushing through the underbrush, and just disappeared. No sound, no rustling branches. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone. I stood there for a full minute staring at the spot where he'd been, trying to process what had just happened. The forest had gone quiet around me. No birds, no wind, just silence pressing in from all sides.
I told myself he was just some eccentric hermit. People got weird living alone in the woods. Maybe he had a cabin nearby. Maybe he'd had bad experiences with wildlife. Bears, maybe, or mountain lions. I shook it off and kept hiking. But the encounter stuck with me, nagging at the back of my mind like a splinter I couldn't reach. By 6 p.m., I found my spot. A large clearing pressed right up against a dense section of forest. The ground was flat and clear, perfect for pitching a tent. The tree line curved around the northern edge like a wall, providing shelter from wind. I could see stars starting to emerge in the darkening sky. It was perfect. I set up camp quickly, muscle memory from hundreds of nights doing the same thing. Tent, sleeping bag, water filtration system, camp stove. I cooked a simple dinner of dehydrated pasta while the sun sank below the horizon, painting everything in shades of orange and purple. For the first time in months, I felt at peace, alone in the best possible way.
But as darkness settled in completely, something shifted. The temperature dropped fast, my breath coming out in visible clouds. That was normal for October nights. What wasn't normal was the silence. I'd camped in dozens of forests, and they're never truly quiet. There are always sounds. Insects, nocturnal animals, wind moving through branches, the settling and creaking of trees. But this forest had gone completely, utterly silent. Like every living thing had fled or gone into hiding. I tried to ignore it, crawled into my tent around 10 p.m., turned off my headlamp, and lay there in my sleeping bag, trying to convince myself everything was fine. But my body knew something was wrong. My heart rate stayed elevated. Every muscle stayed tense. I couldn't relax. Around midnight, the first sound came. A deep, hollow thud from the tree line, like something heavy hitting the ground. Then another, 10 seconds later. Then another. A slow, deliberate rhythm. Branches began snapping in sequence. Crack, crack, crack. Each one closer than the last. Whatever was making the sound was moving between the trees with careful, measured steps. Not the random movement of an animal. This was purposeful, controlled. The footsteps stopped, maybe 15 feet from my tent, just beyond the tree line where the old man had told me not to camp. I held my breath, lying perfectly still, straining to hear anything else. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It was expectant, patient, like whatever was out there was waiting for me to make the first move. I grabbed my flashlight with shaking hands and slowly unzipped the tent flap. The sound of the zipper seemed impossibly loud in the dead silence. I pointed the beam toward the tree line, my hand trembling so badly the light danced across the ground. That's when I saw it roll into view. A human hand, severed cleanly at the wrist. The fingers were slightly curled, pale in the flashlight beam. Blood pooled beneath it. Still wet, still fresh, soaking into the dirt. I could see the clean cut through bone and tissue, precise, almost surgical. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just stared at that impossible thing lying in the dirt 10 feet from my tent. Then he stepped out of the trees. The old man. But everything about him was different now. His shirt was drenched in blood from collar to waist, so saturated it dripped on the ground with soft pattering sounds. His face had changed. The empty, waiting expression was gone, replaced by something focused and hungry. His eyes gleamed in my flashlight beam like an animal's, reflecting the light back at me. He held something in his right hand, a hunting knife, long and curved, blade dark with blood. When he spoke, his voice was almost gentle, like he was explaining something to a child who should have known better. I told you not to camp near the trees. Makes the killing easier." He smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a crazy smile. A satisfied smile. The smile of someone doing a job they'd perfected over years of practice. Every survival instinct I had screamed at once. I exploded out of the tent and ran. No plan, no direction, just pure animal panic driving me into the forest. Branches whipped my face, tore at my clothes. Roots caught my feet. I fell hard, tasted blood, scrambled up and kept running. Behind me, I heard him laugh. Soft and broken. A sound that shouldn't come from a human throat, echoing through the trees like it was coming from everywhere. I ran until my lungs felt like they were tearing apart, until my legs went numb, until I couldn't take another step. I collapsed behind a massive fallen log, pressing myself into the rotting wood, trying to control my breathing, trying to stay silent. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. Blood ran down my face from a cut above my eyebrow. My hands were torn and bleeding from grabbing branches in the dark. For maybe 20 minutes, nothing. Just my ragged breathing and the pounding of blood in my ears. I started to think maybe I'd lost him. Maybe he'd given up. Maybe... That's when I heard the other sounds. A deep groan, like ancient wood bending under impossible weight. It came from my left, maybe 30 yards away. Then another groan from my right, closer. Then behind me. These weren't footsteps. These were something else. Something bigger. The groaning was accompanied by dragging sounds, wet and heavy, like massive weights being pulled across the forest floor. I risked looking over the log. My eyes had adjusted to the darkness enough to make out shapes, and what I saw made my mind try to shut down entirely. Bodies, hanging from trees, not recently dead. Some looked weeks old, months. One was little more than a skeleton held together by dried ligaments. They hung from ropes, swaying slightly despite the complete absence of wind. There were at least 8 that I could see in the darkness, maybe more deeper in the trees. But that wasn't the worst part. Some of them were moving, not swaying, moving. Their heads turned slowly, tracking something through the darkness. Their fingers twitched and grasped at air. One of them opened its mouth, and that groaning sound came out, deep and resonant like it was coming from the tree itself rather than the corpse hanging from it. I bit down on my own hand to keep from screaming. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. But I was seeing it, hearing it, smelling the rot and decay that hung in the air like fog. The dragging sounds continued, circling my position. Multiple sources, all moving with that same patient, deliberate pace. They knew I was here. They were in no rush. They had all night. Then I heard his voice, the old man's voice, calling out through the darkness. I've been doing this for 37 years. You're number 43? Or is it 44? I lose count sometimes. He sounded conversational, almost friendly. Found this place by accident back in '88. Was planning to end it all, rope in a tree. But something stopped me. Something in these woods spoke to me, showed me what I could become, what I was always meant to be.
His voice moved as he talked, circling through the trees. The forest is hungry, always hungry. It needs feeding, and in return, it gives me purpose, gives me power. The ones who feed it become part of it. They serve it, serve me. We're all connected now, all part of the same beautiful system. I saw movement through the trees, a figure, tall and thin, moving between the hanging bodies like he was inspecting his work. He stopped in front of one, reached up and stroked its cheek, almost tenderly. The corpse's head turned toward his touch. You would have been perfect. Young, healthy, alone. No one knows you're here. I checked your car at the trailhead. No note, no trip plan. You wanted to disappear. Well, congratulations. You're about to get your wish. I couldn't stay behind the log anymore. Whatever was circling me was getting closer, the dragging sounds now maybe 10 feet away. I had to move, had to run. Even if running meant getting caught, staying meant certain death. I burst from behind the log and sprinted deeper into the forest, running blind, no idea where I was going, just away from the sounds and the bodies and that voice. Branches lashed my face. Something sharp gouged my arm, tore through my jacket. I felt warm blood running down to my elbow. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I kept running. Behind me, the forest erupted with sound. Not just the old man now, multiple sets of footsteps, some heavy and dragging, others light and quick. The groaning grew louder, coming from all directions at once, creating a chorus of the dead that reverberated through my skull. I could hear branches breaking as things pushed through the underbrush in pursuit. I don't know how long I ran. Time lost meaning. It could have been 10 minutes or 2 hours. Eventually, I burst out of the tree line into another clearing, this one smaller, and nearly fell into what looked like a campsite. A tent still standing, a backpack, a camp stove. For one insane second, I thought I'd somehow run in a circle back to my own camp. Then I saw the blood, splattered across the tent fabric, soaked into the ground. And next to the tent, partially hidden by shadow, was a body. A woman, maybe mid-30s. She was lying on her back, eyes open and staring at nothing. Her throat had been cut so deeply I could see bone. But that wasn't what made me stagger backward and vomit. It was her chest. It had been opened, ribs spread apart like wings, and her heart was missing, just an empty cavity where it should have been. "That's number 41. The old man's voice came from behind me. I spun around. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, not even breathing hard, that blood-soaked knife still in his hand. She lasted longer than most. Almost made it to the ranger station. Almost. He started walking toward me, slow and unhurried. The forest chooses who stays and who becomes part of it. I'm just the instrument, the shepherd, if you will. Some people are meant to feed it. Others, he gestured at the hanging bodies now emerging from the tree line behind him, swaying in unison. Others become its guardians, its eternal servants. I was trapped. The tree line on 3 sides, the old man blocking the only clear path. My eyes darted around frantically, looking for anything, any weapon, any escape. That's when I saw it. A flare gun lying next to the woman's backpack. She must have been trying to reach it when he killed her. I dove for it as the old man lunged. His knife whistled past my ear, missing by inches. My fingers closed around the flare gun and I rolled onto my back, pointing it at him, pulling the trigger without aiming. The flare shot out in a burning arc of red light and hit him square in the chest. He screamed, a high-pitched, inhuman sound, and staggered backward, flames spreading across his blood-soaked shirt. But he didn't stop. Didn't stop. He kept coming, burning, his skin blackening and peeling, still reaching for me with that knife. The hanging bodies behind him began to groan louder, swaying more violently, some of them pulling against their ropes hard enough that branches cracked as they pushed through the underbrush in pursuit. I don't know how long I ran. My mind just shut off. Autopilot took over. My body ran while my consciousness retreated somewhere safe and dark. When awareness finally came back, I was stumbling out onto a paved road, dawn light breaking through the trees. A ranger truck was parked on the shoulder, and 2 rangers were standing next to it with coffee, probably planning their morning patrol. They said I looked like I had been mauled by a bear, face torn up, clothes shredded, covered in blood and dirt. I could barely speak. I could barely stand. They caught me as I collapsed and loaded me into the truck, radioing for an ambulance, asking me what happened.
I tried to tell them, tried to explain, but the words came out wrong, jumbled and incoherent. All I could manage was bodies and hanging and the old man over and over again. They took me to the hospital, treated my wounds, 23 stitches in my face and arms. Severe dehydration, exposure, shock. The police came that afternoon. I gave them a statement, told them everything, knowing they wouldn't believe it. They humored me, wrote it down, said they'd investigate. 3 days later, a detective came to see me. They'd found the woman's body where I had described it. Her name was Sarah Chen, 34, reported missing 6 weeks earlier. Cause of death, exsanguination from throat laceration. Heart removed post-mortem. They'd found 2 other bodies nearby, both matching descriptions of missing hikers from the past year. But they didn't find the hanging bodies, didn't find the old man, didn't find any evidence of what I'd described. The detective said I stumbled onto a serial killer's dumping ground, and in my panic and the darkness, my mind created the rest. Trauma does strange things to memory, they said. The brain fills in gaps, creates narratives to explain the unexplainable. The old man was probably the killer, and he's likely still out there, but the hanging bodies, the moving corpses, the groaning sounds, all hallucinations brought on by extreme stress and fear. Maybe they're right. Maybe my brain broke and invented monsters because the real monster, a serial killer using the forest as his personal hunting ground, was too mundane, too human to process. But I don't think so. Because I've been researching, digging through old news articles and missing person reports, and I've found a pattern. Over the past 40 years, 73 people have gone missing in Black Pine Forest. Most were solo hikers, most were never found. The few bodies that were recovered showed similar patterns: deep lacerations, missing organs, evidence of being hung or suspended before death. And there are stories. Local legends I found in digitized newspaper archives from the 1800s. Tales of a cursed section of forest where travelers would disappear, where people heard voices calling from the trees, where the dead were said to walk. The FBI has taken over the investigation now. They've declared Black Pine Forest an active crime scene and closed it to the public. They're searching for the killer, for more bodies, for evidence. They've asked me to come back and show them exactly where I ran, where I saw things, but I can't. I can't go back there. Not ever. I'm 3 states away now, in a motel that smells like cigarettes and mold. I don't sleep. When I close my eyes, I see those bodies hanging in the trees, swaying in unison, heads turning to track my movement. I hear that groaning, that wet dragging sound, that soft, broken laugh echoing through darkness. My phone has been ringing all day, numbers I don't recognize. Reporters probably, or maybe the FBI with more questions. I don't answer. Instead, I'm writing this, getting it all out, the whole truth, unfiltered by police reports or psychiatric evaluations. Because here's what I know that they don't. The old man told me he'd been doing this for 37 years, that I was number 43 or 44. But the police have only confirmed 4 bodies, which means there are at least 39 more out there. 39 people who went into those woods and never came out. 39 people who might still be hanging from trees, serving the forest, waiting for the next person who camps too close to the tree line. The detective said they searched the area thoroughly. But Black Pine Forest covers over 200 square miles. How thoroughly could they really search? How deep did they go? And did they search at night, when things come out of the trees? I keep thinking about what the old man said about the forest being hungry, about it choosing who stays and who becomes part of it, about him being the shepherd. What if he wasn't lying? What if that forest really is something more than just trees and dirt? What if it really does have some kind of consciousness, some ancient hunger that needs feeding? There's a knock at my door. I freeze. It's 2 a.m. Nobody should be knocking. The motel clerk said I was the only guest on this floor. I turn off my laptop screen and sit in darkness, listening. Another knock. Soft, patient. Then a voice, low and familiar. You can't run forever. The forest knows where you are. It's in you now, in your blood. You'll come back. They always come back. I press my eye to the peephole. The hallway is empty. Nothing but flickering fluorescent lights and stained carpet. But I heard the voice. I know I did. I'm posting this now while I still can. If you're planning to go hiking, especially solo, please listen to warnings from strangers. Don't camp near tree lines in isolated forests. Don't ignore your instincts when everything goes quiet. And if you ever find yourself in Black Pine Forest, if you see an old man standing on the trail with a warning about bad things in the trees, for God's sake, believe him, because the alternative is so much worse than you can imagine. Another knock at the door, louder this time. I'm going to post this, pack my things, and drive. I don't know where. Somewhere far from forests. Somewhere with open sky and lots of people. Somewhere the trees can't reach. If you don't hear from me again, you'll know why. You'll know the forest called me back, just like it calls everyone who sees too much, who learns too much, who escapes when they shouldn't have been able to. The knocking continues, patient, persistent, eternal. God help me.